Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
It's now time for us to shift focus to industry, innovation, and sustainability this morning as we look at the Sustainable Development Goal number 9. It talks about resilient infrastructure development and a sustainable industry growth. As we'll be talking this morning with a sustainability expert is Semiye Michael, and they joins us virtually from Kefi. Good morning, Semiye Michael. Thank you for joining us. Let's talk about the SDG9, which talks about industry, innovation, infrastructure. Now, looking at where the world is going, there's so much conversation around sustainable development. What's your view on this move to sustainable infrastructure, innovation, and industry? And where do you think Africa is in this conversation?
I'm sure this is not a big question to answer for anybody who is a member of such a society like ours. Yeah, we're not static, but we're not just making the kind of progress that we desire to see. That is just the main factor. But yeah, things are changing, and there are definitely improvements, but at the speed with which these improvements will match up with the global, development reality, such that people in our society will have the experience of a prosperous society. That is what we are not seeing.
All right, good to have you join us once again. You started by making reference to the fact that anyone who is familiar with what's happening in our society will understand the level of development or underdevelopment when it comes to the target set by SDG Goal 9. Now, talking about commitment and then some of the level of development that ought to have taken place, let's get to the root cause of this challenge. What are some of these issues that Africa, especially, is battling with that's also mitigated the commitment and the dedication to Sustainable Development Goal 9, which has to do with industrialization and also sustainable infrastructure? What are some of these critical issues that are peculiar to our continent and by extension to Nigeria that has also hampered the commitment or the level of progress that ought to have been achieved in this area?
The issue with infrastructure is that if it is fixed, most of every other economic challenges will automatically be fixed. But unfortunately, we have key issues around infrastructure development, which basically is around procurement processes. Procurement processes provide a lot of loopholes in Africa for individuals to tamper with this, with the process of procurement that provides infrastructures and delivers them straight to the citizens. So where we have budgetary provisions that are not strict with procurement procedures that allows individuals to insert their interests within the procurement strategies, and eventually opens wide range of doors for individuals with corrupt tendencies to now divert the objective of procurement that provides infrastructure, either in road, either in energy, either in common service delivery. At the end of the day, we have these challenges that have delayed the delivery of Goal 9. This is not specific about Nigeria, largely. As a matter of fact, the entire continent, Africa, has suffered from this, very slow movement in terms of infrastructure delivery. But as you can see, our citizens are also becoming more aware. But in a place like Nigeria, where the civic space is already been shrinked, we are afraid that citizens will continue to struggle to be able to have the courage it deserves to demand, accountability that deliver the kind of infrastructure our society needs.
All right, talking about achieving the kind of infrastructure that society needs. Now, it is not just about putting down any form of infrastructure, it's also about that infrastructure or the industrial development being compliant with the sustainable development goals, talking about it also being eco-friendly as much as it delivers economic benefits to the people. Let's again look at Africa. You mentioned earlier that Africa is not static, but Africa is not where it should be. Now, apart from corruption, which you've also highlighted as a challenge, what other issues are responsible for Africa not being where it should be in terms of industrial and infrastructure growth?
So basically, our education design also put us at a very huge disadvantage. As a young person in Nigeria or in most part of Africa, we are only, educated around, service management. We are not educated around service delivery. So an average, Nigerian studies in school to develop personal ability for personal prosperity and development. That is why you can discover that most times what we go to school, what we leave school to have with us is ability to struggle, to have a life of our own. And an individual have resources that he can use for a personal, development. But unfortunately, such individual put in a public environment, he will not be able to use the same resources for public good. That is why you can have people who be a governor but will not build a good university for the state, but have a private university with a standard that everybody would admire locally and globally. So people have a very good of personal sense, prosperity and development that they have of community prosperity and development. It's an education, design where our education does not provide problem-solving skills. Problem-solving skills, help people to build society. Okay, but the knowledge transferable, education system we have deployed so far in this part of the world has only been that which we inherited. Somewhere in Germany, somewhere in India, somewhere in China, we have students who study, mining, who study, forestry, who study a lot of, economic development orientation. Whereas they don't even have those resources, there. It is here we have those resources, but here we do not study things that put us in charge of our system. We study things that will help us be, people who will be hired when the people who have studied the things we have will eventually come here in the future to manage what we have on our behalf. So we have this backward centered education structure that does not put us in charge of problem-solving, attitudes. And it's still a long way because we do not even have people within the sphere of, development designs that have this mentality knowing that we have a problem that we are not going to just be sitting around the table and conversing politically and solve those issues. So it's a big deal. It's not just the issue of corruption, but we have a systemic design that doesn't put us in an advantage to look at the future we need and curate them holistically.
Now, let me draw your attention to two sensitive words here, which is the words inclusive and sustainable. Now, for infrastructure to be considered to be inclusive or sustainable, what are the standards, the international standards? What are the expectations? What are the norms? What are the requirements? And if you look at what is available in our climate or in our society, would you say there's a deviation from the standard and from the norm? And what can be done to correct this narrative if you agree there's a deviation? So the word inclusive and sustainable as regards infrastructure.
And sustainability. So these two words are very germane to the entire sustainable development, design. So one, inclusivity. We're talking about, to have a balanced infrastructure that cater for the need of every human race. That has to do with children, that has to do with women, that has to do with people living with disability. And, you know, in most part of the world, there are policies and laws that, you know, governs the development of any form of infrastructure. Let's say hospitality industry, let's say road, let's say transport system, let's say urban housing provision. So there are basic laws and policies that govern the provision of such infrastructure. And there is no bending, and there is no political power that can subvert these policies and laws, which mostly in this part of the world we do not have those laws. Yeah, we do not also have those strong policies that enables them. But the few of those policies and laws we even have, you know, we don't have political will to enforce them. And individuals and corporate organizations with high powers and connections break these rules and principles at will, and such affects, you know, the realization of this component of inclusivity. But on sustainable landscape, you know, the world is moving eco-friendly and also looking at how climate-friendly most of the initiatives in terms of infrastructure we develop, you know, are building in the West. The construction companies are now inclining more towards eco-friendly raw materials. Mobile industries are now producing, you know, eco-friendly automobiles. The telecoms companies are also being forced to align with this, because whatever infrastructure or services you produce, if there are no human race to enjoy them, the essence at the end of the day is defeated. So humanity over profit is the heart of sustainability. And, you know, unity in diversity is at the heart of inclusivity. So whatever infrastructure we deploy that doesn't have policies and laws that force the adherence to ensure that every human, you know, race enjoy the service of such infrastructure, I think it is far from reality.
When we talk about inclusivity, it should be for everyone in every area. Looking at that and looking at the rural areas in Nigeria and even some parts of Africa, can you say that inclusivity is actually be achieved in terms of infrastructure development?
So in Nigeria, we do not have that. Community development initiative that actually focuses on community development. Let's take Abuja for a case study. So you see, the new minister of FCT has done incredibly well in improving, you know, social infrastructure, especially when it comes to issues like road in the federal capital. But you can see, for example, the entire focus of such activity has been focused at the city center, whereas we have the suburb, we have the Gwagwalada Area Council, we have the Wali, we have the Abaji, we have the Kuje, we have the Buhari, that has not seen the kind of such, you know, deployment. We have the Minister of FCT, we have the Minister of State. One will ask, for example, what is the role of the Minister of State in ensuring that the communities in FCT, the rural communities in FCT, enjoy some level of concentration that the city center has also enjoyed. And when we move to state, it also the replica. State capitals enjoy more of whatever this state is deploying for development, as against the rural communities in such places. The rural electrification projects no longer is as functioning as it used to be. Rural water, you know, initiatives no longer as function as as they are meant to be. So the road networks in the rural communities are no longer. So you see, and the people in the rural communities who are supposed to be the engine power of national development, providing foods, ensuring food security, catering for our forests, they are now forced to migrate to the, to the urban centers because so many, most of the life support infrastructure that are supposed to be also deployed to the rural communities have, been centered. So when we talk of inclusivity in terms of decentralized development and infrastructure, focus, I'm not sure we have it carefully, considered in Nigeria.
Interesting. Now, let's look at the role of budgeting or financing or investment when it comes to achieving sustainable development or sustainable infrastructure in this regard. You're aware of the economic realities playing out and the fact that most businesses or companies now are battling with the issue of financing, and thereafter is affecting the kind of investment that should go into any sector. Now, let's look at this in regard to the issue of sustainable infrastructure. How much of impact has the issue of budgeting or lack of access to financing affected the commitment to providing sustainable infrastructure? And what can be done to ensure that this web is also solved, the web of investment, to attract the right investment into building sustainable infrastructure, most importantly in Africa?
So yeah, I think one key thing is the fact that our budgeting systems are not an inclusive agenda, so to say. So let's take, for example, how many times you as an individual, how many times have you participated in the budget creation of either your state or your local government, for example? How many times have your House of Representative member or senator consulted you in a town hall meeting in preparation for the national budget? In your state, how many times have you been consulted to participate in the, in the things that are required to form the budget of the country? And also in your local government, how many town hall meetings have you attended to reflect the fact that the budget needs your input or opinion? So, and globally, there is this framework we call the Open Government Partnership. As a matter of fact, we're somewhere close to Kefi now, was building capacity for some local governments in FCT on how to build in, citizens' participation in budgeting, because the budget has continued to be the handwork of few on behalf of many. Representatives are supposed to be closer to people in every sector of governance, where when we are making budget, the budget should be a citizen budget and not government budget. The government does not have budget. It is citizen budget. Unfortunately, we have had government budget all the time because it is the people in government that sit down and decide what the budget should capture and what it should not capture. And at the end of the day, you discover that most of the things that are captured in the budget does not even reflect the true desire and need of the people. And that is, one side of the coin. Let's even talk about the actual things that are eventually captured in the budget. How do they reflect and how are they implemented? Moving from the local government that are even more closer to the people and empowered by the Constitution to deliver direct services, to the citizens. How much power has been given to the local government to deliver in actual sense through appropriation and budgeting? Most of the responsibility of the local government has been taken over by the federal government and inserted into things like a constituency project by the National Assembly member who are at will to either do it or not do it, or just call their cronies and people who are closer to them in form of contractors to do window dressing and elephant contracts. At the end of the day, the things that are meant to provide some of these basic infrastructure to the communities have been taken over by powerful individuals, and budget is messed up, and then how do we attract investment when basic social infrastructure and amenities are not provided? It still baffles. Up to today, most the national telecoms, the telecom companies are still powering power supply to their, mast and, all their equipment by themselves. They run diesel gens 24 hours to supply us, connectivity. At what cost do you think these people will be able to break even? See the saga that is happening between Dangote Refinery and the federal government, for example. Personal interests continue to overpower the common interest of the public, and then this is the same thing that also reflects either in our attitude towards strict budget implementation. Nigeria is currently operating about 3 or 4 budgets concurrently. 2023 appropriation bill, 2023 additional budget that was approved, 2024 appropriation bill, additional appropriation bill, also approved. It's so reckless. It's so reckless. And yet, at the same time, the discipline it requires to follow up with these, budget implementations has been terribly bastardized. We've got a long way to go, but yeah, we do not have to bury the hope as a people.
All right, now we're talking about discipline. Let's also look at intentionality. I haven't talked about the budget, how the budget doesn't quite align with the plans to become a sustainable infrastructure and industrialized nation. Let's look at what developed climes have been able to do in terms of in these areas. Now, they've been able to use multi-sector approach to transition in terms of renewable energy in the infrastructure area, and then in the industrialization to having circular economy. What can we learn from what we've been able to do? It's just 6 years away in achieving this SDG goal.
So we have to be bold. We have to be bold, and the right people have to be in the right places in government, and which I am not sure the people in government have the courage to do. As long as we are going to continue to, how do I put it? As long as we are continuing to compensate people with political offices, which are very germane and critical to national development, some of these sacrifices we will not be able to make them. In this part of the world where you have made example, leaders are deliberate, leaders are intentional. You can see, for example, the US president, after carefully considered his age, his ability to discern and dispense quality decision and leadership, being advised to step down from contesting for the next election, and he graciously accepting to do that. Such is not going to happen.
All right, we seem to have lost connection with our guests. It boils down to the issue of infrastructure we're talking about. Interesting. Okay, he's back with us. If you can hear me,
I can hear you. Okay. Am I still audible?
Yeah, you're on now. Please go ahead. Please go ahead. Continue.
So as long as we're going to continue to use political offices to play political, scorecard and games, it's going to continue to be a challenge. So I served with one of the rep members in the UK to develop and implement some of his leadership ambition. The kind of sacrifices and zeal I see with such individuals, they do not sacrifice, or they do not bring people based on, sentiment to deliver activities for them. Here am I in Nigeria, got to know about what I can do with climate education implementation in his community, and he reached out. They look for the best people who can deliver the best result. So, my sister, it is not something to overflow. The right people have to be in the right places. Let's just take one example, just one example. Before now, you apply for your international passport and it takes you 2 months, 3 months, forever. You can't get it. You paid for it. They should print it and give it to you. Even if they are printing it in the US, you paid. Let them pay. Let them print and give it to you. In 2 weeks, get your passport. For years, they told us it was impossible. But then we have a minister who came in under 1 year and said, why not, if not, and made everything possible. So now you apply for your passport, and then in 2 weeks or even 1 week, you get your passport. In fact, now you may not even need to visit the passport office to get your passport. You can do everything right in the comfort of your house, and then it is shipped there to you. Up to now, if you apply for your driver license, I have applied for one now. It is more than 6 months. I have not even been able to get when it will be delivered to me. Each time I visit the office, they tell me that it is not their responsibility. The guy at the top is the one I should get angry with, all those kind of a thing. And then you reach out to the Federal Road Safety. They said it is impossible. They print it outside the country. I paid money. This is wrong people in wrong offices continues to redo the entire country of the national interest and national benefit. So if we don't fix putting the right people in the right places, we will not get the kind of examples you have just cited.
Already is interesting. Now, I would like us to focus on solutions. Now, spend the last few minutes on this program to look at some of the critical steps to be taken for Africa, and by extension Nigeria, to have what we'll call sustainable and inclusive infrastructure. I asked the question earlier, and I would like to rephrase it this way. What kind of investment should be attracted, into this sector? And even if funds or investments are attracted, what critical areas do you think these investments should be channeled to in order to address these challenges and for Africa to have sustainable and reliable form of infrastructure? Could it be technology in the area of, internet, whatever it is? What are these critical areas you think this investment should be channeled?
First and foremost, security. We must deliberately invest in human capital development to defeat the current security challenge that we have. Without enabling environment in terms of a secured society, investment, is going to continue to be just a dream, but not a reality. Second, we need to invest properly in education design that delivers the kind of problem-solving, skills that our society needs to thrive. That also must be strategically thought about. Physical infrastructure, we need to, invest in power. If we fix our energy sector, both now that renewable energy is coming to the front burner, and the existing, power structure that we have. If we fix our energy sector, we are going to be fixing almost 50% of our economy, downturn. And then we need to strategically invest in human capital development, especially the young people. We have a huge opportunity in the demographic dividend of young people in Nigeria. We have the right population, we have the right passion, we have the right energy. It is the skill that is, that is absent. So huge investment in human capital, and then we need to connect our roads. poor road networks in Nigeria is a huge disadvantage to our economic, progress, especially agriculture, because no matter how much we make, no matter how much harvest that is available, farmers are having a lot of problem in moving their goods to good, market spaces. So these are basic, areas that they are low-hanging fruits that if we immediately deploy into them, we can win investment, courage and faith, and also quickly move up our economic opportunities and deliveries.
Let's look at the industries now. So what kind of sustainable industrial practices does Nigeria need to incorporate into the various industries that it has, and what benefits will it translate to?
So the world is moving to a green economy, which young people also are building deliberate skills around, and I believe it will save us in multi dimensions, because first it will save our planet, help us fight the climate crisis quickly, and also give us a lot of economic opportunity jobs as quickly as possible. But then we have to deploy more research power. Our university have to function maximally at providing the kind of researches that will open us more to the opportunities that exist in this sector. For now, people are left on their own to research the opportunities. The universities are not doing much because we have a lot of professors who are obviously not professing what they should profess for our society to turn around. So that is one sector. The green economy is something that we should deploy a lot of resources to research around and build industries and economic opportunities for the timid young people across the country.
Planning, we're talking about critical steps now in the aspect of planning, urban planning, and in the aspect of supervision. You earlier talked about the need for research, but in the aspect of planning, what are your expectations, or what kind of changes are you expecting for this sustainable infrastructure to be put in place?
Well, I'm not so positive about Nigeria's culture around planning, because we've had so much of them. I think as someone on the field and who has worked with a lot of government agencies in design and planning, I think action is the big is one thing that is a shortage in our behavior. So we have good plans, we have good strategies, and we are not poor in terms of planning and strategies. We are really poor in terms of the courage to put implementations on the table. So I think that's my own take in that regard.
Still talking about planning, and earlier you mentioned that the private individuals are doing their own thing, the institutions are doing theirs. What sort of public-private partnership do we need at this point? What sort of coordinated collaborations are needed?
Okay, so it is important that we continue to collaborate as citizens and the government. Ability to be able to stand our ground and hold government accountable. The ability for government to be able to accept the fact that the citizens are not, you are not doing them a favor. It's also very critical. So at the moment, the society, at the mention of a protest, the entire country is already thrown into jittering. That collaboration is the first one. The collaboration between citizen and government to be able to hold each other accountable is very critical. Media and the government agencies, corporate bodies, businesses, there must be an alliance that we cannot divorce. we must continue to stay together, hold each other accountable, look each other in the face and tell ourselves the truth, and yet still stay together to pursue our common interest. Thank you.
Many thanks for being our guest, Semiye Michael, who is a sustainability expert and also the executive director, Dean Initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's been the show today. Thank you for watching. I am Blessing H. The show will return tomorrow at 8 a.m. Do ensure to be a part of it by watching.
And don't forget, the conversation continues on our social media platforms at Soup News TV. Your voice needs to be heard. So go there, make your comments, and let the conversation continue there. I am Femi Ayodele. Thanks for watching. Elexing returns tomorrow, bigger and better.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.